Hello, my name is Wilberto Torres, and I'm the host of Today in Packaging podcast by Packbrain. This is the first episode, and with me, I have my ex manager at the Hershey Company, Josh Becker. We are going to be talking about why become a packaging engineer. We are going to share our experience, our thought about the difference between packaging development engineer, packaging system engineer, and why you should consider packaging engineer as your career. Hoping you enjoy this podcast. Please share, comment, like, and be with us until the end so you can enjoy our great conversation. Thank you for watching. Hello, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing great, Wilberto. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. Hey, thank you for being part of the first episode of Today in Packaging here in Packbrain Podcast.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I'm so happy to be a participant today.
Today we are going to have like an organic conversation, but at the same time we are going to provide a lot of educational topics, right?
Yep. Correct.
Um, the reason why I select this topic about why become a packaging engineer is because I know the experience that you have. We have a great experience together,
hmm
working in the past. So I believe that you are the best fit, to do this podcast to show everybody why become a packaging engineer. But first, give me a little bit about your introduction so people can know who is Josh Becker.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm flattered by your kind comments. I appreciate that. Um, so who am I? So I'm Josh Becker. I am currently working for Harpak Alma Packaging. We are a packaging solution provider, food medical, but my goal or my role is product manager for the bakery and confectionery segment. So happy to be here today.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's start. Okay. So to break the ice, right, between you and
Mm-hmm.
me in this organic conversation, um, tell me a little bit about your story on how you become a packaging engineer.
Yeah, it's interesting how the story kind of unfolds as you go through life. But I can honestly say, prior to starting my career after college, I had no idea what a packaging engineer was, packaging systems engineer, and that I was even going to become one. So I have a degree in chemical engineering from Penn State. And, with that degree, my thought is I'm going to work for a chemical company or a pharmaceutical company or, you know, who knows, right? So, back then you graduate college and, hey, what's my job going to be? Well, you take the first job you can get. And it just so happened the first job that I got was a second shift supervisor at a Frito-Lay plant managing a packaging department. So my first foray into understanding what packaging was in a food manufacturing plant. And and the more I thought about kind of that role, what I was doing, I was a supervisor, so I wasn't necessarily designing anything in particular, but I really learned in that role, like, what it takes to put a product together, put a package together, get it in something that's going to be shipped to the grocery stores. If you're not in the industry, you just really think that everything's going to miraculously appear on the grocery store shelves by itself. You don't necessarily think of the entire supply chain that's created to deliver that product. And I would say that being my first job in my career kind of got me interested in packaging. That propelled me to a career at Kraft Foods, working in different manufacturing plants with different businesses. If I think through part of my career, and the products that I've worked on, all the Frito-Lay brands, Capri Sun at Kraft Foods, Lunchables, Crystal Light, very fine beverages, all those things, even though maybe I didn't have a specific role that was my title of packaging systems, but I impacted those through being operations manager, engineering manager, maintenance manager, packaging equipment design engineer across different locations. I have always gravitated towards packaging equipment and the packaging portion of any industry that I've worked in. And you follow that right along. Then I left craft and started working in the baking industry for Bimbo Bakeries. And that was just, you think of the baking industry, as something maybe not overly complicated in packaging. You think of a bread bag and a twisty.
Yeah.
Or, it's not complicated, but it still exists there. It still exists in that industry. And that just continued to propel my gravitation, like I said, towards packaging equipment. From one industry to the next, from baking, I went into the confection industry with Hershey, where we worked together for a couple of years. And you go from the baking industry, maybe not overly complicated, to high speed confectionery packaging. It's like, that's the epitome of packaging systems. I mean, it's the highlight of high speed, 1,000 pieces per minute, exciting, from primary to secondary to tertiary. There's all this excitement around it. But over the career, you see all these different products and brands and how they all come together. And it's so fascinating and unique. And I think just early on, going back to seeing how potato chips were packaged, it's just like, this is amazing. And it's so fruitful to be able to see what I've been a part of, either the brands that I've worked on, the equipment that I've worked on, supplying different products to market, and then going to the grocery store and saying, yeah, I worked on that. Hey, that was my idea. Hey, I know all these packages were put here because of something that I did, with the companies that I worked for. It's fascinating to be able to experience that throughout the packaging, I guess, the packaging career. And it's been the highlight of my career. I've been doing it for 25 years.
It's beautiful, it's the aspect that you just mentioned. Hey, I go to the grocery store and I see this. Oh, I did something similar to that, or I did that. It's amazing in the way that you can show to others exactly the type of work that you do.
Yeah.
My story is a little bit different. When I graduate from University of Puerto Rico in Maya West, I start to work with Merck Chaparron, a pharmaceutical, really well-known company. And I started as a manufacturing engineer, right?
Yeah.
After a year, I remember that the company started to receive a couple of complaints related to packaging. And the company at that moment in that facility, they don't have any department of engineers dedicated to troubleshoot the equipment. So they decide to pick like 4 or 5 mechanical engineers from the plant and put it together in this team. Hey guys, go there and figure out what's going on, because we need to reduce the complaints from the customers. Yeah. So at the beginning, I was like, I study mechanical engineer. I don't study to be a packaging engineer. That was my first thing. So, oh my God, what will happen with my future? Then when I start to go with my mom to the grocery store, I start to see all the merchandising, right? And I say, wait a minute, everything here need a package.
Yeah.
So everything in a world need a package. Maybe this is a blessing. So that is how my career started in the packaging. And today I eat, I drink, I sleep, I dream, I do everything about packaging. And actually I have my own company now, Packbrain. So it's interesting, Josh. You mentioned that you and me, we have a background together in Hershey company. By the way, and I need to be honest, when I joined you and the team at Hershey, my career as a package engineer just grow. That was like a rocket ship, the speed, the different type of packaging, the complexity. To that the company need to handle it, to be successful with the competition. Packaging is a driver to grow sale, definitely. And that
100%.
was excellent. Yeah, that was excellent. So I know now your story. People know your story. People know my story. And there are different type of engineers, right? There are the packaging material engineer or packaging development engineers, and what you and me are more, which is the packaging system engineer. The difference is for me, easy, and I want that you explain what is the difference of both in yourself, by yourself, sorry, what are important that relationship between both. For me, the packaging engineer is basically the one that designed the package, select the material. He understand what the product need to be protected for shipping or for customer behavior or those kind of stuff. And the packaging system engineer are the people, right, that will design the packaging line or select the correct equipment to be able to put together all those packages, right? To be able to deliver to the store and the consumer. So for you, Josh, what is the difference between packaging development engineer and packaging system engineer, and why is important that relationship between both?
Sure, absolutely. And I give probably some experiences that I've worked in over the years, but you think of the packaging materials engineers like you spoke of, those are the ones that are probably more tied into the marketing department, maybe a little bit the sales. They're coming up with some sort of idea of, hey, we should do this with our particular products in this type of package. So you have your packaging materials groups that focus more on that side of the business. So choosing the right materials, choosing whether it needs to have barrier properties to protect the product. They're doing shelf life studies or structure studies or strength studies of the materials to ensure it's protecting properly the product that's being manufactured. That's the role of the material development, packaging materials engineer. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but there's degree programs you can do for that particular field. The packaging system side, there's no degree program you can go to college and say, I'm going to be a packaging assistant engineer. We find whoever in the industry that, is a mechanical background, translate that maybe to what, we do in the manufacturing side on the packaging equipment. But our goal is really, we take that idea that comes from marketing through packaging materials, and our responsibility is, okay, here's the product, here's the material. Let's make something or put something together that's going to actually deliver what this needs to look like at the end of the production line. So we're dealing a whole lot more with our manufacturing plants, locations that are going to be making the products and putting the final package together. And then all those bits and pieces of the packaging unit operations that are going to make that product. Whether it's with a flexible film or a corrugated box, there's all these unit operations. So as the packaging systems engineer, we know the product, we know the materials, and then we piece together that entire production line to accommodate all of those deliverables. And at the same time, it's got to work.
Yeah.
The operations teams that are going to run it have to be happy. It has to be cost effective. It has to work at the end of the day and be successful and drive high efficiencies. Because all these products are put together with certain expectations of it's going to cost this, it's going to cost that, and we need to run X, millions of them over a certain period of time. That's our role. We put that entire system together, pick and choose the equipment. So the equipment side, I would say, has more of the technical aptitude, more the engineering background, the engineering degree to understand how all these systems kind of work and get put together.
Exactly.
That's the big difference that I see and that I focused on and throughout my career.
Exactly. So, and that is why the relationship is so people can say, I'm packaging engineer. Yes, but I'm packaging engineering in the material side, I'm packaging engineering in the system side. Not everybody specify that right away, right? You know it after you start to have conversation, but that is why we need to define that relationship between both. So for example, I will give you an example. So like you mentioned, the packaging engineers check the structures, pick the materials, what exactly is the best component that we need to use to design this, the packaging system, the equipment. But if we don't understand each engineer don't understand how the product will behave in this equipment, and how the equipment will behave, in this design, the company will not be successful during the implementation process. So something that I want to mention, and then you can mention another experience, is that, for example, procurement, right? Procurement sometimes are not packaging engineers, but they have their goals to reduce cost, right? Every year, of course, every company wants to reduce cost. And the best way to do it is to reduce the cost of the raw material to make the package, for example, right? So they go out there and start to bid the process with a multiple supplier, but they don't realize that sometimes that change of material could have a huge impact in the packaging line that was designed for this specific type of material. So how do you see that, or another story that you can share with the people about why it's important, that relationship between material engineers and system engineers?
Yeah, I mean, it's important because each of those groups have to understand a little bit about what each other's group is doing. Just because you have a system let's say you have a packaging system that works today, running these materials, it works fine. You go through that, little cost reduction trial, packaging materials, right? The goal is to look for, cost improvement opportunities. They want to reduce the thickness of a film. Sounds simple enough, right? Nothing else changes with the dimensions. It's just the film itself is a little bit thin, or another supplier comes in. So the materials group and the equipment group, even though they're often separate entities, the two need to be hand in hand, because you can't just change the materials without doing probably proper trials and testing and evaluations on the line, because not all packaging material suppliers are created equal. All of their sub-suppliers that maybe are supplying them the resins to make the film aren't all created equal. Even though it may be claimed the same type of specifications, it's not the same. And you see that when you're running, millions and millions of packages over and over, and you change something, there's going to be an impact. So if those two groups are more functionally working together, understand a little bit, okay, material change requires some equipment change, and the same thing on our equipment side. If we think we're going to run a new project or put in a new piece of machinery, hey, let's work with the materials team to ensure that material was going to work on this new machine. It's extremely important. You can't operate in silos. You have to work together. The more the two groups work together, the more success you're going to have, because if you don't, then you have this whole finger pointing. Operations is going to say, my machine's not working. Okay. Equipment engineers are going to come in and say, oh, it's the packaging materials is not working. So, all right, they call the packaging materials guy. He comes in and says, no, there's nothing wrong with the material. The machine just can't run it. So you get in the endless cycle of whose responsibility is it? So the two groups have to work together. It's paramount that they work together.
Exactly. Something that I want to point out is that this example that we are sharing here, the impact is dependent industry. For example, in pharmaceutical or medical device industry, procurement can change. They cannot change a raw material supplier without having a successful validation process. So for example, company A delivered, now this material, procurement want to change it to company B to reduce costs. The engineers, the packaging need to validate the equipment, protocol, change control, all those kind of stuff, because it's a regulated environment. In the other side, which is the one that you and me worked before, the CPG's company, procurement can change it, and you notice that there is an issue when the line is running.
Yeah, much less regulated.
Exactly. So that is the difference, right? And that is why we want to share this experience, because it's important. Some industry have the regulation in place to avoid this issue, other not. And that is why anyway, in overall, it's important, that the packaging materials and packaging system engineer work together, right? I remember a couple of things, that we have issues like that. especially with this new requirement from retail ready packaging.
Yeah,
Nice stories behind all those kind of stuff.
yeah,
Okay, Josh,
yeah,
excellent. I really appreciate the way that you explain by yourself, what is the difference between both engineers. But
yeah,
now, you mentioned at the beginning that there are several universities that provide degrees for packaging engineering himself. And
yes,
also, there are a lot of marketing agencies, right?
yep.
That do the design of the graphics or those kind of stuff. Why you understand, and this is something that you mentioned it to me several times in the past, why you understand that we need to have more packaging systems engineer, not packaging development engineer, more packaging systems engineer.
I mean, we need more of them because, like I said, nobody knows what a packaging systems engineer is, and you can't go to school for it. You know, if you can go to school for something and there's a degree for something, you're going to flood the industry with people with that specific knowledge. Um, and because of that, then you have enough packaging material engineers to choose from. You have some process engineers to choose from, but you don't. There's no degree for packaging equipment engineering. Um, and what's interesting, I mean, is I went to an engineering career fair, and I got asked by several students, electrical engineering degrees, some mechanical, others, and it said, and first of all, I was working for Hershey at the time, and they're like, "What is a food company doing at an engineering career fair?" So not even is maybe just packaging systems, because they didn't specify what does an engineer need to package equipment. It's what is a food company. So there's just this misnomer that people just don't understand, that or students don't understand today, that the food industry, the manufacturing industry, is full of engineers, and it's beyond making of the product, because you can have a production line that makes one product. You have an engineer that designs the process, all right, but on the packaging side, you can take one product and you can have 50 different SKUs, or 50 different ways that you can package that product, with the primary wrap, the secondary carton, the tertiary package, the way it's displayed in modules and stores. There's so many different. It exponentially increases the complexity of the packaging end. That's why we need more packaging systems engineers. You know, it's getting the product into what the consumer needs is changing constantly. And if you don't have enough people who understand the complexity around all the unit operations to deliver that product to the end consumer in the right way, the safest way, the most efficient way to work with the operation plants, you're just going to be fighting yourself all day long. There's a need, and it's, you get, sometimes you have these packaging material engineers that have a little bit of focus on packaging equipment, but it's beyond the materials. It's the mechanical aptitude that I think, and it's just the fact that it's people are unaware that it's actually a career choice.
Yeah.
And I think because they're unaware it's a career choice, is why there's a lack of packaging systems engineers in the industry today.
Good. So you just let me follow your
Yep.
your experience. Um, you went to this engineering job fair. Let's say that you start to receive a lot of resumes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are hiring a packaging system engineer, what you will be looking in that resume?
Yeah. If it's someone that doesn't, obviously the first thing I'd look for is, have they worked for a consumer packaged good company? Do they have knowledge of the manufacturing industry? That's key. If they do, it's easy. Easy is maybe not the right term, because nothing's really easy, but you put a little bit of hard work behind it, you can kind of do anything with it. But if they have a little bit of background in manufacturing, understand process systems and how to put things together, that's important. Secondly, is, through a conversation with that person, do they seem like someone who's capable of grasping new concepts? Are they someone who's continually looking to improve themselves and try new things? It's not that what we do is absolutely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you need the right people who are willing to kind of accept something new. But you have to be able to function in an operations environment. You have to be able to function in a manufacturing plant. You have to be able to have a intelligent conversation with materials engineers. You almost need to understand marketing and strategy, because we're often sometimes developing the equipment at the front end, but we're still owning it at the end after it's installed. So we're working with the entire supply chain, the entire corporation. We have involvement with. So you have to be a comfortable person who's capable of kind of working with all levels, because you're ultimately reporting back to all levels depending on the success of your project.
Yeah, you need to work with a lot of stakeholder, a lot of department at the same time, every time that you have a project. But let me change a little bit of perspective here, Josh. And this is something, I don't know you are prepared for this, but hey, you just mentioned that you check, that if they work before in the CPG companies, all those kind of stuff. But let's assume that I'm your son.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in college, right? And I want to follow your step. And I say, hey, Dad, what I need to do in college to become a packaging system engineer? What you will say to me?
I don't want to limit it to just one degree, because I think there's multiple degree disciplines that can do the job. I would say it needs to be a technical degree, but by technical, it doesn't mean it has to be mechanical engineering. It could be industrial engineering. Industrial engineers are ones that they understand process. And a lot of what we do is understanding a process and looking for efficient ways to do things. Or chemical engineer, right? That's what I am. We understand processes, but you need to have a little bit of a mechanical understanding. Are we doing, in our role, are we designing gearbox ratios and all the specifics that go into a piece of equipment? No, we have equipment suppliers that specialize in those unit operations, but we have to be really good at putting the pieces of that puzzle together. So you need to have an open mind. You can't be a very closed, focused individual. But if I was to recommend a degree platform for someone starting that wants to become a packaging systems engineer, I would recommend industrial or mechanical engineering, possibly even electrical engineering, because as we see the shift in technology changing, equipments are becoming more technologically advanced with controls and communication systems. But if you can apply a minor to your college education, do a minor in materials or polymers or something that deals with material structures, so that you have a bit of an understanding of the material used, or supply chain. Supply chain, understanding supply chain. So there's a couple of different scenarios that can be pieced together, so it doesn't have to be so pigeonholed into one degree program. Like I think, like for a packaging material engineer, if you want to be a packaging material engineer, you almost have to go in that route. Packaging systems, you don't. You just have to have that open mind to be able to look at a process, understand systems. And if there's someone that works with their hands but likes puzzles and efficiency and finding the right way to do something, that's probably the right way to go.
Perfect. Something that I will add from my perspective is like try to find a way that you can develop leadership, public speaking. You need to be talking in a lot of meetings with the multiple people, and you need to be able to negotiate with other companies, suppliers. It's really important that you develop a little bit of that skill of leadership, public speaking. Okay, perfect. Yeah, you passed the test with that question.
Well, and you hit the key there, Roberto, on leadership roles. Oftentimes the packaging systems engineer, you are the guy or the gal. It's your project. So, and I don't mean that to say that you're on an island, by yourself, but you are typically that main person who's putting the system together, utilizing your resources as best as possible. And
Mhm.
if you are able to take that leadership role amongst your resources and call your resources materials, marketing, suppliers, operations team at the plant, um, you group those individuals together and you lead them to a successful end of your project and communicate with them effectively, you're going to have a successful project. And you're right, it's the ability to speak at all levels. Public speaking, not so much standing up in front of a room of 100 people giving a speech.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts, your ideas, listening to others, interpreting them to the right way to kind of drive the project forward? Um, Leadership class is a fantastic example of something that should be applied in the college education level of folks going into industry. Very
Yeah,
important.
because based on my experience as a packaging system engineer, Josh, you most of the time are the leader of the meeting. Most of the time, you are the person that are communicating the tough part of the project.
Mm-hmm.
The understanding behind why we can do this or why we should do this.
Yep.
And you need to be able to express yourself with yourself properly.
Yep.
Uh, it's a great career. That is why I'm doing what I'm
Yep.
doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, Josh. So I think that we already explained, why become a package engineer and why people should explore
Mm-hmm.
this as another option in their career. Just to finish this great conversation with you, I want to get your perspective on how you see the future of packaging from now on.
Yeah. I mean, you know it as well as I do. If anything in the last, say, 5 years has shown us, it's the way products are displayed to the consumer are changing constantly. Um, we've seen evolution of that the last several years, where it used to be maximize the number of products on a grocery store shelf, in any capacity possible, and then the products all get lost. People can't tell what's what. Now it's not necessarily how much products on the shelf. It's how can we design the packaging to grab consumers as they're walking down the aisle at the grocery store or they're shopping online. It's all about what the product looks like in the package. And that's changing constantly. And it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen without any involvement. It takes someone understanding kind of how to get it in that capacity, you know. So there's just going to be constant change moving forward in how products are packaged. And you think about what we just went through in 2020. You know, packages now, people are going to be a little bit more concerned about the food safety piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's going to be a focus on, well, how's that product packaged? What was the supply chain steps for that product? How do I know as a consumer? How do I know it was safe the entire way? We're going to start to see a little bit more individually wrapped products. We're going to see a little bit more product protection. We're going to see a little bit more food safety applied. And so that goes back into equipment design, line design, how systems are installed in plants where it's not going to be 30 people on a production line because they can't be that close to each other now. We're going to look at how can we automate that packaging line to minimize the impact of people working in close proximity. This whole pandemic has changed, I think, the future of packaging systems design, packaging equipment design. And we're certainly, I'm not putting a plug for my company, but we're certainly seeing impact on our side as now as I work for a supplier, is companies are looking for automation, and not necessarily because it pays back, is because there's not enough labor force there available to package the product. So there's going to be continued push for improved automation to deliver these packages to the consumers or
Definitely,
retailers. So
definitely, and that will have a huge impact also to the manpower,
absolutely,
and the training process, all those kind of stuff. So it's interesting what is coming, but we can have another conversation, another episode here in Today
absolutely.
in Packaging about the future of the manpower in packaging operation. Hey Josh, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being part of the first episode of Today in Packaging. here in Packbrain Podcast. I really appreciate you, appreciate your time, and thank you for everything, Josh.
Happy to be contestant or participant number one for you,
Yes,
Roberto.
yes.
Yep.
Participant number one. So this was Today in Packaging, episode 1, here in Packbrain Podcast. See you next time, everybody. Bye.